What do you think of when you hear the name Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, who defeated an invincible armada and remained celibate? She has made her mark on history as the queen who symbolized the golden age of England. However, did you know that there is a hidden and unknown side to her? Elizabeth I was not just a strong queen. Her life hides many tricks, trials, and truths we do not yet know. Today, we will explore some surprising facts about Queen Elizabeth I, the story of her rise to power, why she never married, her influence on art and culture, and her bravery on the battlefield. We will also take you on an in-depth look at her private life and the impact she left behind. Let's unravel the truth about Elizabeth I behind the scenes of history, and let's unravel her story together. Chapter 1. Elizabeth I, from obscurity to Queen Elizabeth I was born in 1533, the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, but her childhood was not a privileged one. When she was 3 years old, her mother Anne Boleyn was executed and Elizabeth was treated as a bastard. As a young girl, she was caught up in a power struggle at court that kept her out of the line for the throne. Everyone thought her future was doomed. During Elizabeth's boyhood, religious conflicts between Catholics and Protestants intensified when her half-sister Mary I ascended to the throne. During this period, Elizabeth's life was threatened for her faith and her family's position, and she was even accused of treason and imprisoned in the Tower of London, a dangerous situation. Nevertheless, she remained calm and developed her political wits. In 1558, Mary I died and the throne came to Elizabeth. At this time, she was 25 years old and had overcome her previous precarious position and stood strong as the Queen of England. Chapter 2. The Queen who never married and chose marriage instead. It is widely known that Queen Elizabeth I remained celibate for the rest of her life. However, there were a number of political and strategic factors behind this decision. Elizabeth's decision not to marry was not merely a personal choice, but a ploy to protect the future of her nation. Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII, married 6 times, each time bringing about major changes that shook the country. As a result, she was acutely aware of how marriage could affect the state. In particular, her marriage could threaten England's independence if she had ties to a foreign royal family. Marriage was a dangerous gamble in statecraft. Instead, Elizabeth skillfully used marriage as a tool of diplomacy. She never entered into marriage, manipulating her relations with other countries through rumors of engagement. She was courted by such notables as Felipe II of Spain and the Duke of Anjou of France, but she deftly avoided marrying them, thus preserving England's independence and stability. Chapter 3. The Queen as patron of culture. The reign of Elizabeth I is known as a period of artistic and cultural development. During her reign, great writers such as William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and Edmund Spenser flourished, and the Elizabethan dynasty enjoyed a golden age of literature. Her leadership and support of culture had a profound impact on the development of this period. But Elizabeth did not merely support culture, she also used the arts as a means to enhance national cohesion. Theatrical performances at court were also a powerful propaganda tool to legitimize her rule and instill patriotism in the people. She herself loved the theater and famously invited Shakespeare's troupe to the court. Elizabeth also had a deep understanding of poetry and literature and forged friendships with writers. Her reign was not just a time of military victories and political stability, but also a time of cultural identity. Chapter 4. Elizabeth's strategic military leadership. The battle against the Spanish Invincible Armada in 1588 was the greatest challenge of Elizabeth's reign. In this war, she was not just a symbolic leader, but actually directed military strategy and acted boldly to defend her nation. Before the war began, Elizabeth took to the field as military commander at Tilbury and delivered a speech that directly inspired the soldiers. At this time, she famously said, "I am a weak woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king." She demonstrated to her soldiers her willingness to fight for the nation, and as a result, England defeated the Great Spanish Fleet. This victory established England's maritime supremacy and cemented Elizabeth's reputation. But Elizabeth's military leadership extended beyond mere battlefield command to skillful diplomatic strategy before and after the war. She strengthened relations with her allies and made England's defenses rock solid. Chapter 5. The private side of Elizabeth I. While Elizabeth I was a cool-headed and strategic leader, she also had a very human and private side. In particular, her relationship with Robert Dudley has been the subject of much debate among historians. Dudley remained Elizabeth's closest advisor from shortly after her accession to the throne, and it is said that there was a deep emotional connection between the two. Elizabeth's reason for not marrying Dudley, however, was a result of her paramount concern for the interests of the state. She feared that marriage would undermine her independence. Elizabeth also suffered from increasing loneliness in her later years. Her most trusted aides and friends died one by one, leaving her with no one left around. Behind her glory as a great queen who defended her nation, there was a lonely and sensitive woman with a sensitive heart. Chapter 6. The Diplomacy of Elizabeth I. Behind the scenes to defend the throne, Elizabeth I was not only a war queen, but also a leader with exceptional diplomatic skills. Her reign was supported by a meticulous strategy for forging powerful alliances and her ability to navigate complex international relations. Behind Elizabeth's defense of her country and her ability to make England a powerful nation was the exquisite foreign policy she deployed. One of the greatest challenges Elizabeth faced was the religious conflicts that were raging throughout Europe. At the time of her accession to the Protestant throne, tensions were mounting with Catholic powers in neighboring Spain and France. She had to strike a careful balance, especially in her relations with King Felipe II of Spain. Elizabeth used marriage diplomacy to make other monarchs aware of her as a suitor, but never married anyone and maintained her independence. Felipe II was one of those who once considered marrying Elizabeth, but Elizabeth skillfully rejected his courtship, while using her diplomatic skills to avoid war with him. Meanwhile, another major diplomatic challenge in Elizabeth's reign was her relationship with Mary Stuart of Scotland. Mary was a cousin of Elizabeth and a supporter of Catholicism, claiming the throne of both Scotland and England. This made Mary a potential threat to Elizabeth. Elizabeth used political rather than direct military action to keep Mary at bay. Ultimately, she removed the threat in the form of Mary's imprisonment and her execution, but it is said that there was great internal conflict in this decision. In addition, Elizabeth provided support for Protestant forces on the European continent, as well as for French and Dutch independence movements. Through economic support and military advice, rather than military intervention, she succeeded in strengthening her Protestant allies and avoiding encirclement by Catholic powers. Thus, Elizabeth continually balanced her diplomacy and defended her country. Elizabeth's foreign policy was not merely for national defense, it expanded England's international influence and brought prosperity to the nation. The peace and stability of her reign were the result of her skillful manipulation of international politics, which allowed Elizabeth to avoid war while still building England into a powerful maritime nation. The legacy of Elizabeth I. The death of Elizabeth I in 1603 marked a major change in England. The system of governance she established was passed on to her successor, James I, and England continued to grow. The impact of Elizabeth's reign, both politically and culturally, continues to the present day. The powerful national system she established and the golden age of her culture had a profound impact on future generations. Her leadership, wisdom, and courage are still an example to leaders around the world today. At the end of this video, we hope that viewers have gained a sense of the true greatness of Queen Elizabeth I. Her story still has many lessons for us today. How was it? If you liked this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.